Hello everybody, this is CJ Wiley with more Adventures on the Road. Kind of a dreary day up here in Iowa. Getting ready to make a trip up to the north side of Chicago, mostly Wisconsin. I was up, that's where I got one of the best cue sticks I ever had. A guy named Bob Rundy, who worked for Sean Q's, Terry Romine back then. He made me this 6-point house cue that I ended up getting stolen from me when I was stuck up at gunpoint in Minneapolis. But it's funny because I've got some clinics and lessons set up in Kenosha and Racine and some of those towns up there. And the lady that is setting it up is Bonnie, who plays on the WPBA, and she's from Waukegan, Illinois. And Waukegan is a place where I had something very memorable happen. I was up there with Doug Smith and Strong Arm John, and we were at this bar called the Homestead Bar. And this place was full of underworld activities. Lots of big money going through there. They had a blackjack game in the back, and just a lot of activities, let's just say, that I'd heard about, and that's what drew us there. One of the main areas that we always went after was places that had a lot of, cash money, if you know what I mean. And Waukegan definitely had that at that Homestead Bar. We made a game. There was two guys up there that were players and very accomplished players. One was named Boston Joey. He was an expert on the bar table with the big cue ball. And another guy named Alley Oop, I think his name was Al Guerrero, who also was an accomplished bar table player and gambler. So we went up there, and John ended up getting them to agree to give Doug Smith the wild 8 on a bar table. And I think we had the best of that. Doug was an undercover champion on a bar table and loved playing with that big cue ball. The big cue ball was what pretty much all the bar tables used once upon a time, because the ball was bigger, so it wouldn't go down the same passageway as the object balls. Then they started putting magnets in them, and I'm not exactly sure what they do now, but they have to have a way to separate the object balls and the cue ball, so the cue ball goes down in the spot on the breaking end of the table. So anyway, Doug went out to get his cue stick, and as he's getting his cue out of the car, he said later that there was a line of cars turning in the place, and his first instinct was, wow, there's a party. And it was not a party. He quickly realized that it was a bunch of undercover police officers, and they came in and just swarmed the place, broke in the door, and had us all get up against the wall. So I had my back up against the wall, and to my left, all the way down to the front door, there was a line of people. I guess I was probably number 15 or so. And right in front of me was a police officer about 8 feet away. And he stood right in front of me. Now, I had a dilemma. See, back then, we used to smoke a little bit of something we called enhancement, which now is legal in Illinois, so it's a different scenario. But I had some of it in my left jacket pocket. So if you looked at my jacket, it was right here. And the police officers in front of me, well, I know if they find me with that, they're probably going to take me to jail. And I was also in there with a fake ID. I had the Mike Holtz ID from Indiana. So, I was in a situation. So I thought to myself, you got a shot, you better take it. And so I had to figure out how to get rid of it right in front of the police officer. So what I did was I noticed that he kept looking down to his right, where they were searching everybody, coming towards me. And so I crossed my arms and I put my right hand inside the left side of my jacket and reached down. He couldn't tell I was doing it, but I reached down and I got this little baggie of enhancement. And right when I timed it where he looked down to his right, I took my hands out of my pockets and cupped them in front of like my belt buckle. And then I just kept waiting for him to look down. Each time he looked down, I just first put it inside my pants and then just kept pushing it until you really couldn't feel it was there. And sure enough, when they got to me, they searched me. But they did not find that. But they found the fake ID. So I remember I had a real ID too. So, they knew what was up. They just took my fake ID and told me, don't come back to Lake County to a bar until you're old enough. And I was like, yes, sir. And they let me go. So I was one of the first ones to go outside. Well, I didn't have the keys to the car. So I looked up across the street, and there was another bar. So I just ran across the street, ran in the bar, and they already knew that the place was getting raided. So I just ordered a beer and had a beer. So I didn't mind too long, did I? But anyway, you build up a thirst going through a raid like that, especially nerve-wracking things like having to get rid of evidence right in front of a uniformed police officer. So, I had a few encounters like that. There's another, I was with this guy named Big Brad from Cleveland, Ohio. He had this orange van, and we were up in Milwaukee, which really isn't that far from Waukegan. I guess I was just unlucky in that respect. But we got pulled over because we had a van with Ohio plates. They made me get out of the passenger side and, again, was going to frisk me and wanted to see my ID. Well, again, I had the same enhancement in my pocket, but this time I had like a camouflage vest, and in one of the pockets, I had a cue ball. Because, the cue balls in these bars weren't that good for the most part. And I had one that I was used to, that I'd practiced with, that I would switch into games, if possible, which gave me an advantage. But a lot of times it was just because the cue ball we were using was so bad. So I carried my own cue ball. A lot of players did back then. So anyway, when I got out of the van, the police officer, I was like, now I'm totally in a bad spot. So what I did was I reached into my pocket, and we were parked kind of on the top of a hill, and I reached in my pocket and deliberately pushed that cue ball out where it hit the sidewalk and started bouncing down behind me. And I said to the police officer, I said, hey, that's my cue ball. I got to get it. Hold on just a second. And I ran after the cue ball, and when I grabbed the cue ball, I put my hand in my pocket and did the same thing. I took it out, put it in my pants, and before I turned around and brought the cue ball back and just made a point, say, I know it's unusual, officer, to have a cue ball, but I'm a pool player, and the really good ones carry their own cue ball, and blah blah blah. It's just I just have been very fortunate that in high pressure situations is when I operate the best. So what came out must have been good, because he just laughed and ended up looking at my ID and letting me in the van. He didn't even search me, but I knew that was going to be a possibility. So when you're on the road, you've got to be a quick thinker, because you never know what's going to come up. I mean, between being robbed at gunpoint and being in a lot of these critical situations, there's a few more that I'll tell you about in the future that even get more sophisticated, what I had to do to get out of them. But that's, like I said, being a road player, I learned a lot hanging around some of the best hustlers in the world early in life. I'm so glad to have that experience. You can't learn that in a college classroom. So, and being around some of the greatest, like Strong Arm John, Doug Smith, Omaha John, Dalton Leone, and Rusty Brandemeyer, and the list goes on and on. Anyway, if you aren't a subscriber, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and give this a like if you want. And if you have any comments, I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. And if you want to learn more about my systems, techniques, and fundamentals I use to win the ESPN World Championships, join me at www.cjwiley.com. And you can always email me for private instruction at cjwiley@cjwiley.com. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Until later, I'll talk with you then.